at the end of the day, it's on me. I might be sitting in front of the greatest actor, like Natalie Portman, or I might be sitting in front of a tennis ball. And I can't allow, as a professional actor, who takes himself seriously, I can't allow either one of those things to diminish what it is that I'm called for. I have to be able to act to this tennis ball and elicit whatever it is I need to elicit from this tennis ball. The same thing I would from, Natalie Portman, Viola Davis, Meryl Streep. That's the work.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
This is the 300th episode of Back to One, the Actors on Acting podcast from Filmmaker Magazine. If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave a review and share it with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. Always feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Back2OnePodcast or send me an email at back2onepodcast@gmail.com. On this episode, it's Noel, who stars in Alma Har'el's new series, The Lady in the Lake. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process? Like when you get a new character, is there a typical road you go down? And what's the first step down that road?
Daydreaming.
Yes.
Daydreaming is the typical route that I tend to allow, and you said a little bit about it, right? The mystical elements. I've realized now, I was quite like you in that I am very heady and thoughtful, and which serves us in certain endeavors.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I noticed that it was a bit inhibiting over a while because I wanted to go into the room as an actor with all of these different, planned executions, but that's not how acting works. So daydreaming. That's where I begin.
Do you read the script over and over and continue to
over prepare?
Yeah.
I daydream and over prepare. I was trying to strike that balance. Yeah. Because that's the only way to get to the place where you can allow the divine to come in. Because if I show up unprepared, it's like faith and works, right? You have to have faith, but it needs works, right?
Yes.
And you need to prepare, So the certainty comes from feeling prepared, which then allows you to just,
And what are you pulling from those daydreams? Why is that an important process? You know what I mean? Why is that an important first step? What is happening for those thoughts that actually helps you when the camera rolls up?
It always depends on the different, it's always going to be different. If there's anything in common from the next, recently, last couple of years, I've been, I guess last 2 years, with this project that we just finished, that we're out here promoting now, I started listening to the ancestors in a way, which is really interesting, going deep into like the different dimensions to just hear what it is that they want to call from me in terms of being a vessel for this character. So that's something that I started maybe 2 years ago. I don't know how. I think it's that sort of spiritual divination is something that has come from my own personal spiritual growth. But now there's like this added element that allows even more certainty, because it's like, all right, it's not me. I do whatever, I'm a vessel here. So if I answered your question, that's sort of a link in the last couple of years of just allowing a space for the energy, energy. I'll call it an energy, maybe.
Yeah.
Or an energy that's not me to sort of make certain decisions. And then I just find myself walking with it and saying, okay, this is interesting, and this feels a little bit good. This feels really good. Of course, there's gonna be practical things. Like I go to a coach who I've been going to for ever since I did Insecure on HBO, that, but it's usually after just sitting and daydreaming. And he'll tell me, this moment right here that you're working on, it's not embodied. I can't necessarily tell you why, but go daydream about it more. And then things, start to
drop in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Things just start to drop in on their own.
Yeah. And so you have to almost, here's a better way to say it. How do you keep that alive? Because you're probably starting that well before the shoot.
Yeah.
How do you keep that alive when you're actually shooting? Keep those energies going for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm always envious of those actors who can just like do a scene and then immediately go to a place where they're playful and they're like, you know, kicking it with the rest of the cast and making jokes with Crafty. There's moments when I'm like that, but it's usually after I've done that scene that I've been thinking of the most, right? Where I can just surrender and just be like, for me, you say what it is that how do I keep it? I just go to a space where I'm just by myself. Like for me, solitude and space and stillness allows me to remain in those spaces. I guess it also depends on the character I'm playing. Like if I was in a comedy, if I was in a space where I needed to sort of stay in contact with people, then maybe I would be a little more jovial. But I've been fortunate, or whatever it is, to maybe not even so much fortunate, but for whatever reason, I'm playing characters that have an emotional depth to them that allows that need personally of space to be something that I go to, and it doesn't get in the way of me, you know, snapping back in the character. I just go to my own. I go back to the trailer often. You know, I'll go to, you know, from the green room, or a room like the one that we're in right now. I'll go to just a place on my own and just sort of daydream a little bit more. But yeah, it's something about the daydreaming where, you know, this is like the law of attraction, where as soon as you start daydreaming about just one thing, dots end up being connected in this really mystical way that's really hard to articulate.
I get it. I think I get it. And yeah, because so much of this work is unconscious, right?
Yeah.
And you almost have to go to that plane to, I mean, or ideally you want to go to that plane to kind of operate on that.
Exactly. You want to go to a place and that's one of the scariest things about it too. That's one of the, I guess, the hardest things about it. It's one of the most enjoyable things about it, and also the hardest thing, because the enjoyable thing is what happens right after you get out your own way. The hardest thing is to get out your own way and to trust in this mystical thing that is even hard for me right now to even articulate. And everybody's process is a little bit different. For me, I'm at a place now where I'm much more satisfied without going in there with all of these plans. You know, I'm over in the way that I guess account for that is, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm super thoughtful. All right, well, in that case, I'm gonna feed that thoughtfulness. I'm gonna feed whatever it is that is motivating me to need to be analytical. I'm gonna do that, you know, a month or two before with the preparation. So I'm gonna know everything about the era. I'm gonna know everything about the walk. I'm gonna know everything about my character, things that, of course, aren't on the page. And then that allows me to be, for that, whatever it is, I don't know if that's right brain or left brain, to be satisfied, to then get to a place where I can just be like, well, I did it already. So whatever it is that sticks,
get it out of its way.
I can get out of the way. Because for me, that's the biggest obstacle, is just getting out of the way. And I've been in productions, I've been in plays, I've been in rehearsals where it felt like work. And I'm like, wait, no, I didn't do this to just feel like I'm not here to do the right thing. You know, I'm not here to do what's right. I'm here to do whatever it is that I think the closest we come to authenticity is whatever happens spontaneously in the moment. And it's not something to be scared of. I was asking my boy, I was like, yo, because in acting class, I was always, we were always sort of confronted with the question of, what are you risking in this scene? Like, what's the risk? And something about risk, I don't know, as a primitive, your body goes into fight or flight whenever there's actual fear, right? So, you know, our nervous system doesn't necessarily know the difference of what's actually happening versus what's not happening. And as an actor, if you really go in there, you know, if you're in the presence of fear, and fear might be, oh, I'm not gonna get this scene right, then you're going to be emotionally paralyzed. Well, what do we need? We need our actions and our emotions in order to cultivate, you know, authentic, quote unquote, performances. So the fear, and it was blocking me. from having satisfying journeys with these characters. And now I'm in a place because I guess I finally got to in a place where I could just get out of my way. Yeah.
And what do you need to be able to do this? Like, do you need everyone around you to understand how you do this? Do you need everyone, especially the director, to get you and get what you are trying to do here? And do you need an environment that kind of supports this?
I don't think you should ever have to need it. You know, like if you put yourself in, you know, what do they say? Like if you give someone the keys to feed you, that means you also give them the keys to starve you, right? And the same thing applies here in this space, right? Like you hope for a dream scenario, you know, where, and I'll get to this in a second, you hope for a director that will create an experience to where you can do these things, right? Because they know them well. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to be an experience that's not quite the case, and you have to be bulletproof. You know, that's why we over prepare. That's why I work with an acting coach, and we go through scenes in a way to where it's okay. We might have 10 ways a scene might be able to go. Really, there's infinity, but it just gives my nervous system, that thing that's going to go into fight or flight, some more certainty. Like, okay, well, we're prepared for whatever might happen for this, but at the end of the day, it's on me. I might be sitting in front of the greatest actor, like Natalie Portman, or I might be sitting in front of a tennis ball. And I can't allow, as a professional actor, you know, who takes himself seriously, I can't allow either one of those things to diminish what it is that I'm called for. I have to be able to act to this tennis ball and elicit whatever it is I need to elicit from this tennis ball, the same thing I would from, you know, Natalie Portman, Viola Davis, Meryl Streep. That's the work that we do. Now, fortunately, sometimes the gods of cinema and theater smile upon us, and we do have directors that are able to elicit that from us. Our director right now on our show, Lady in the Lake, that comes out July 19th on Apple TV Plus. Nice little shameless plug there. She's incredible at culling the mystical and inviting us to play, right? She is a visionary, but she doesn't project her vision onto us. And that is a miraculous quality for a director to have, and to be so open to what it is that happens when it happens, and then go from there. Like it's an egolessness. It's like a affinity towards nurturing. It's a motherly quality that she has. It's a bit of an emotional intelligence, a bedside manner. All of these things come in and play to making it. It's just super collaborative. Nothing seemed too precious, and that's hard, you know. But something that she's been putting years and years into, and saying, "Here, I wrote this, but let's see what you thought." Like, that is a tremendous certainty on her own behalf, you know. But the interesting thing about it is it ends up giving you more confidence, right? Because you're saying, "Oh, this person who's put all this way more preparation than I put in is giving me." This open,
allowing me to create,
allowing me to create, and being open to what it is that it just occurs in the space. It's like, okay, well, all right, you know, let me open, let me make sure I'm the most open I can be, if that's the game that we're playing.
And then what happens is you serve her vision better.
Exactly.
And then she gets what she wants even more.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Right.
But tell me how. Because it is kind of a hard thing to understand for some people, I think. A visionary director, being able to, in that visionary approach, be loose about it, enough to let you create. Can you give me an example of how she may have done that with, like, a changing based on what you were giving, maybe, or something like that? Is that what happened?
Yeah. All the way from literally inviting me to decide what my character Ferdy played says in these moments. Like, she has the script, which is sort of like the Bible, and then being like, that didn't sound right. What do you think you'd say? Because at this point, her knowing me, and knowing her actors, now I know the most about this character.
Yeah.
So being open, I mean, I was at Alma's house one day, right before we were shooting the scene, and she asked me to write. She was like, well, what do you say? Here, gave me a pen and a pad. And I was like, which is crazy to me, because it's like, oh, I didn't know. I don't know if I can, I don't know, like what I say. Because part of our also job is to make whatever it is sound like it was something that the character would say, and that is authentic and spontaneous. So it almost felt like I was cheating to write the character's words, but there was an instant, those were the instances of her just being like, here, actually say it.
Yeah.
You know, and saying it. Matter of fact, she comes from work as a documentarian. So realism and authentic portrayals is what she really strives for, right? It's not anything. I remember there was one scene where I had an idea of what the character, it was sort of like, there was a moment, because I could play a cop, a moment where I had to run down on somebody and be super antagonistic. And I was sort of, I was playing like a villain. You know, I was like went in there with like, okay. And it was coming across probably a little bit too mustache twirly. And I remember she was just like, I like what you're doing, but you know, like, look what he's doing. You know, just like, we were playing with the actor I was going to opposite had never acted before, but he was from Baltimore, which is where we were shooting. And she was like, you see how he's just calm and he's just talking and he's not acting because he's not an actor? Like, use a little bit of that. And it really settled me. You know, it humbled me and it settled me. And, you know, just like you said, she ended up getting more of what her vision, just being open to what was happening in the moment. And it grounded it in a way. Yeah.
That's beautiful. You know, the thing I one of the aspects of this show, but especially your performance that I was impressed by, is a lot of times I turn something off when I don't feel like the people are acting like I think people would act in a certain time. And it felt like you were of that time. Is there anything you can tell me about how you approach the idea of, I have to appear like I'm somebody in 1960s Baltimore?
Yeah, that was I watched a couple documentaries. I was watching documentaries on cops from around that era, and our dialect coach Beth McGuire, she pulled a couple clips, and I would watch them. But then honestly, it was mostly just sort of sitting down and just sitting down without any expectations and daydreaming on my character's circumstances. Like for me in particular, that character, what I knew about him was that he was a pariah to his community, right? Because he's a cop in a Black community, and we have an inherent distrust of law enforcement, justifiable distrust of law enforcement. And yet I had to don this police uniform. So it made me feel extremely lonely, right? Because, you know, emotionally, but also quite literally, because when I would go to the set, you know, the background extras, the supporting actors, they, you know, they wouldn't really talk to me. Right, and this is a fictional character that I'm playing, and yet this, you know, this symbol was so prominent that it prevented us from communicating on a level unless I took the hat off, right? So it let me know, of course, A, we have a very fractured relationship with law enforcement that we have to do more to correct. And then B, that there's just so much power in this energy. Then that's the energy I sat in. It's like, what is it like to be a pariah, you know? And what ends up needing to become my safe space, because I have to survive not only physically, but also emotionally. What do I now do? So that's the space I would just daydream in those little pockets, and just allow whatever it is, this energy that we're talking about, to come and feel. And with her particular directing style, I think it really allowed for that.
I think it's, tell me if I'm wrong here. It sounds like because this is so scary to do this work, we always want to like kind of use our thoughts to get to the end of, like you said, the right way of doing something.
Yeah.
But you're talking about just trusting the feeling or the daydreaming and letting it work through you and not being scared, not trying to do it right. And then that yielding the results.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, and it depends on, because there might be, say for instance, you're doing a 2-month run where you have to, you're on a stage and you have to hit a certain mark, right? You got to hit that certain mark, but you know, but the way you hit the mark from night to night, even though you have to hit it at a particular time, is always, anybody who does that, it's always going to be a little bit different. And being open to that is the scary part. Right. But also being open to that is the also liberating part, is the part where when you have a little bit of surrender, it gives you that satisfaction.
Yeah.
You know?
When you got this role and you realized that you're going to be working closely with somebody like Natalie Portman, I'm saying somebody like Natalie Portman. You literally are working with somebody who is Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, just this idea of this, a movie star, you know, and this idea of, I wonder if they're going to be a working actor like me. That's what I would think. And I would be like, all right, what if they're not though? How am I going to deal with that? Was some of this going through your mind? And how did the reality meet your expectations?
Yeah, a bit of it in this situation, right? Because there's always going to be some, it's always going to be peculiar to what the exact situation you're in. And I happen to have Alma, who is all the things that we've been talking about. So I knew that the captain of the ship selected these things to happen, right? No, I don't know exactly the genesis of their connection and how Natalie and Alma came about the project, but I knew that if Alma was involved, there's a depth in the poetry, you know, and that coupled with the fact that I've seen what Natalie does and I've heard her interviews, and I met her when we were out for the first time years ago, before this project was even thought of. I met her in a service-oriented space, you know, that wasn't even in acting. So I knew that she held that depth and that kindness. So when I met her in person, you know, I think we met her in a trailer when she was getting ready for a scene, and it was my first day, and I had to, you know, had a meeting with the hair and makeup key, and I was like, okay, this is what it is. And you get those anxiety and all that nerves. And I think the next day was our first scene together, and it just she greeted me with a hug, and she was just a branch off the tree of Alma. Really, she just felt like an extension of that. And I said, okay, this is going to be fun. It's going to require me to maintain this level of certainty. And I'll be nervous, right? Because you're dealing with, it's like tennis. You're dealing with one of the best tennis players. I always liken it to making it on the all-star team for the very first time. And you're in the same locker room with a several-time all-star, right? And then I was like, okay, cool. You're on the court. Here you go. You have an opportunity to do this, but you got to keep that ball in the air. Not only that, you got to get it in those baskets. And obviously, sports references, they're more result-oriented. Like there's numbers on the board at the end of the day. Whereas with this, it just felt like she was a great partner to dance with in these mystical elements that we're talking about. And with Alma at the helm of that, and Natalie being so responsive to Alma, it was very cohesive in that way.
That's beautiful. And let me ask you, like, when, I don't know if you've ever come across this, but even if you haven't, then imagining it, when someone is not like that, that you have to make magic with, when someone is lost in their own, maybe their own ego, their own lack of tools, their own tension, what do you do?
Yeah, well, you know, These days it's different because I've been that person. I've been the lost person that's tense and that's, hopefully I haven't, completely ruined someone's experience because I've always been, I guess, prepared and I guess immersed with this sort of openness, but I've been more tense at times than others. But when you're confronted with that these days, it's compassion initially. And then even in that, just even saying that, like, well, how would the character feel about the fact that this person is tense? How would the character feel about whatever? I think it's just being open to what it is that's happening. And then if that doesn't work and the director has a specific vision on it, then okay, then we go from there to what it is that we talked about earlier, which is I gotta be able to perform either with Natalie Portman or with this tennis ball. And I have to come with that preparation in mind. Right? Like it's a beautiful thing. And the most ideal version of this is when everything is just ping, 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 but that doesn't always happen. It might even rain that day. Right. Am I supposed to, my character's supposed to run through the summery fields, right? Yeah. And it's summertime. Am I supposed to now be, doldrums and feeling like it's raining? No, the same thing happens for this person in front of me that is attention and maybe over analytical. It's like, not me, not to me as a character. My faith and my certainty in what's happening right now has to be in such a way that it can't be dismantled by what's happening across the table. If it's a situation where I can be open to because it's perfect for the conditions that we need for the scene, then that's beautiful.
I guess we're getting the idea that you're ready for anything. But what if somebody wants to like really rehearse the hell out of something for whatever reason that they think is suits the scene? Are you seeing, does something diminish in your work with that kind of thing, or is it strengthened through rehearsal?
I think now, because I come from an overly analytical history of doing things, I find it enjoyable. I know a lot of people don't. Yeah. I guess I'll say I've found it enjoyable, and I think a bit of it is me still exercising my nerves and being like, okay, the more I do this, the less sort of nervous I am, and the better it's getting, the more I'm exploring. So I just look at it, okay, well, if we're doing this, if the director wants this to happen, what can I get from it? You gotta kind of be like a therapist and a motivational counselor to yourself and an actor when you're doing these things. You have to always be reframing. If you're like, oh, I don't like this, boom, boom, well, shit, and there you go. Like, you don't like it, and you're not gonna get anything from it. Yeah. But if this is what we're doing, okay, well, how can I approach this? Yeah. I can approach this positively. I can act, I can say, okay, cool. Well, now I'm gonna do this. I have an opportunity to do it this way in this rehearsal. Yeah. And this, in each of the 16 or 30 times, I have an opportunity to do it differently. And that's where a little bit of that motivational coach, in my opinion, comes from, is being like, all right, well, I might not like this intuitively, but I can frame it in a way that it can be in satisfying. I think, though, with the certainty, and as I become more confident, I think that I might benefit from the certainty from being less prepared, though. I mean, being over-prepared, but being less prepared in the sense of like, oh, I have to rehearse this 30 times to feel a modicum of certainty. Now I'm like, okay, well, let's see. We've done it 3 times. Let's see what it's like. Let's get, like, I'm still doing acting classes all the time. And it used to be you'd go with your scene partner and you got 2 hours to rehearse. You spend the first 40 minutes just catching up, bullshitting. Yeah. And now immediately I'm the guy that's like, let's get up on our feet. Let's get up on our feet and just see what happens. We don't want to do that, especially when you're new to acting, because you feel nervous. You don't feel prepared, right. And you subconsciously want to spend the time.
You want to avoid it.
Avoiding it, But it's really the fun part is one of my actors, Nick Walker at NYU. At Tisch when I was there. I remember a director saying how sort of fearless he was, because he was just willing to fail. And because he was so willing to fail, he found all of these things. He discovered all these things in the rehearsal process, which is the point, is to fail. Right. Which is, again, to what we were speaking about earlier, the body doesn't want to fail. The body is there to prevent you from failing. It's like, oh no, don't go that way. Right. Oh, that's a saber tooth. Or that's a big bad wolf, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna keep you safe. So I guess part of the rehearsal process is bringing your body and your nervous system to a place where it's like, oh no, we're not doing that thing. We're not in danger. We're doing that thing where we come to the brink of whatever it is, and then we go have, then we go watch a good movie or whatever it is. But so that, I think the rehearsal is desensitizing that fear factor a bit.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
What do you actually get out of these acting classes at this point? Like, is that just is it just a place to fail? Like,
I think it is, which is, I say, even when you said that just now, I was like, oh, I don't want to fail. And I'll always be that. And I think there's something in that. I think there's a beauty in that, because the fear of failure keeps you sharp. In a way, you know, it doesn't have to be debilitating. It can keep you sharp. But it's like, if I was playing an instrument, I wouldn't just become great and then stop practicing. I would practice more if I played the violin.
Charlie Parker practiced like 7 hours a day or something crazy.
And I need to be practicing more. As an actor, though, we can't, like, I used to, before I was acting, I was an athlete. And if you say you play basketball, you can just go to the gym and shoot all day. And that was a great practice. You shot from everywhere on the court 100 times. And that's a great practice. With acting, though, because it is abstract and because there's mystical elements, I've always tried to figure out, well, how do I practice? Practicing on one day might just look like looking out the mirror and daydreaming. On another day, it might look like grabbing a couple sonnets of Shakespeare. On another day, it might be watching a director's roundtable, on actors, whatever it's called, Hollywood Reporter. But I think that rehearsal, those classes, they keep me sharp. They're the gym for me to explore, do things that, the industry might not have opportunities for me to do, which is incredible in terms of like strengthening my capacity to do what I love the most, which is be a character actor and play a large category of things, and might be the only place that allows me to rehearse on, be King Lear. I might not be old enough yet to do that. Or somebody, a casting director might not quite see me as that villain. I get to go to that place and do what it is that made me become an actor. And that's not only going to make me a better actor, but it's allowing me to express myself in a way that made me want to be an actor in that moment, in that class. Like that's my I've gotten casted. That's my moment. Like that rehearsal is that's me performing for 50,000 people.
You're a very thoughtful actor who does things in this way because you respect the work and you respect your, when things get to a point where the business comes in and your team grows and you have to approach this whole thing in another kind of game of chess or not. Is this stuff you think about? Is this stuff that you avoid?
I think that's a part of the recipe that a lot of actors fail at. It's something that I'm just now sort of tapping into, and I've been doing this for, almost 20 years in terms of me being interested, and in terms of me being a professional actor. I've been doing it since 2013. So almost a decade now, and I'm just now being like, I need to be paying more attention to, I don't know, the trades or what's happening in this space, business-wise. How am I selling myself? I just recently had a conversation for the first time with branding and what that means. How do I position myself within the culture and on social media? Like those things for me is like ill as a pure actor. But I recognize that they do have a bit of there are people who I really look up to who don't need it or have it, but there is an interesting place where it can be helpful, and it can be helpful in a way to where it gets you to a place where because your name is a part of the zeitgeist, there might be certain directors that now want to work with you. And now you're in a place again where you can do the thing that be around pure artists. that,
Right.
you know, because they got to know about you.
Right.
They got to know. There needs to be some strategy business wise that gets you in front of these people.
Yeah.
You know, I think it can really just be about your work, but people have to know about you for you to do work in the first place that then gets you in front of these people. For me, it's always just been about the work. I say, all right, cream rises to the top. But I don't think acting it's not the business in of itself. There's acting and there's the business, and the business isn't a meritocracy, right? There's all of these other factors that I don't know much about, that honestly, because I don't know much about, I've stayed away from, and I'm just now finally leaning into it and be like, well, what is that? Why did this person get that role? And ultimately, I do believe that what's meant for you is meant for you. But it is something I'm thinking about now more and more. It's like, okay, well, what strategy do we have here? How are we approaching getting this role? You know, how are we going to rebel? How are we not going to go against? How are we not going to go with the rules here?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to make a rogue tape and send it in, or get an email and say, hey, because I'm so passionate about this, I have to be seen for this? I think, you know, you get fortune favors the brave.
That's right.
Especially in business.
Yes.
You know, so there definitely has to be an exploration of one's business-minded acumen.
Yeah.
In this game, I at this point, and it varies in different stages for different people.
Well, I'm very excited about your work. I'm very excited about what you have to offer us as a hungry audience member who likes quality work. You get me excited.
Oh, man.
And I want you to come back on the show. Noel, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. This is incredible. It's very refreshing to just be able to talk about these kind of things and not just the sort of formulaic questions that we will get asked over and over that are important to be asked. But this is just like, you know, it's just like just kicking it with a member of your community.
I appreciate that.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.